Good morning and welcome to everybody joining us today for the 7 steps to writing successful grant applications. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend this next 30 minutes with me, Liz Fleming, the Efficiency Coach, on learning about grants and how you can write your successful application. Just before we start, some housekeeping. Please have yourself on mute for the duration. This webinar will be recorded and sent out to participants after this. Please write any questions you have in the chat, starting with a Q, and my lovely PA Deb will collate them when we come to question time later on. And also any emails that may come through from either Eventbrite or from myself, just pays to check your junk and your spam folder every now and again so you don't miss anything. So how many small of you today are small business owners? Who is a small business owner? Yes, we've got a few
Michelle.
in the audience.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. And who is already too busy in their business?
Rochelle.
Hands up, yes. And who feels like they're always wearing too many hats in their business? I think that's all of us again. So what I find when I'm working with businesses is that we're often not ready or don't know what is required for grant applications. And normally grant applications or grant programs have really short application periods. So they'll be issued today, and then they'll give you 3 or 4 weeks to get your application in. And that is not that very long at all. So then when we're already busy, already doing too many things, not enough resources or time, grants just become one of those things that just get put in the too hard basket. But we're going to change that today. Hi, I'm Liz, the Efficiency Coach. Essentially, I'm a business coach and grant writer for small businesses. What I'm obsessed with is making sure that your business has the best opportunity to be successful. You know how there's never enough time to write a grant application in the time given, and it's something that just never gets done as it seems too stressful. Well, what I do is help you and your business to be ready when a grant program is released. You'll have the right tools and information at your fingertips to be able to present your business in the best possible way. Now, I have a confession to make. I do love writing grant applications. I have got extensive experience in managing grant programs for government agencies here in Victoria, Australia. And since having my own business, I've worked with more than 50 clients on their grant applications with 85% success rate. And I'm also really upfront about how strong your project or idea is for each grant program. If I don't think that you meet the criteria fully, we will either work together to check that information first, or I just won't proceed. I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste your time. I'm working with a client at the moment where their project is a great project, but unfortunately, due to the nature of what they want to purchase, doesn't fit the criteria of the grant program. So what we're still doing is working together to develop that project plan to then be able to go and contact some other agencies that may be interested in being part of that project. So it's never wasted, but I'm always upfront about your potential success for your grant project. And this just comes down to my experience. I do know what they're looking for, being able to interpret the guidelines and making sure we've got the key information and the key components of your project from the start. Now we'll start with my process that's proven to create successful grant applications. Let's start. So I've got 7 steps and this will streamline your process. Step 1. Now, what does success mean to you? This means different things to different people, and it's all about in the preparation for a great result. So we want to start off thinking we're going to be successful and doing everything we can to be successful. So this is all about getting organized, collating all the information, reading that criteria, making sure that you are eligible, and then also drafting that outline of your project. So you know, it's all in the preparation, it's all in the readiness. So this is one of the key steps to starting your grant application. The next step is working out how you're going to plan out that work plan. So this is where I create the numbered checklist of all the components required. So this is going through the application form, making sure we've got all that information at hand or we know where to get it. We're going to bring our team together who's going to work with us, and that may mean internal or external people, and having that all-important kickoff meeting. This will set out the expectations and outline of the time frame you've got, especially if you've got a very tight time frame for the grant application, and making sure that everyone's on the same page. And we need to bring everyone together to make sure that everyone's going to work really hard to get this piece of work done. Because if you're missing one component that's a required piece, you won't be able to submit your grant application. And in terms of engaging a grant writer, it doesn't have to be me, but you do need to make sure that you've got someone on your team that has experience in writing grants, and that they can help you with the process and that they know what they're doing. And again, this will help you set up for success. Step 3 is creating and designing your own project plan. So writing a grant application is a bit like a job application. It takes time, but also we're creating that project plan of what we need to do, when, by, and by who. So how is this project going to happen? What components do you need to plan out? Do you need to get a designer in? Do you have it all ready to go? What suppliers do you need to contact? What other businesses do you need to work with to be part of that collaboration? Who's going to benefit from this project? Do you need to contact them? And then we're going to allocate those tasks and actions amongst our team, and also working out the all-important budget. Being an accountant, I do love the budgets as well. And that's always an important part of the grant application. One, to make sure the budget adds up, that it's within the guidelines of what the proposed funds are allowed to be spent on, and also the amount. Some grants may have a matching amount as well. And so we need to make sure those percentages and everything are crystal clear, because if you don't get your numbers right, they just won't approve it. The thing with grants and grant applications is the people that are funding it will try everything to not give you the money. And that does sound counterintuitive, but sometimes there is limited funds. So they need to make sure that the money is well spent to the right people, that's going to end up with the maximum impact and outcome for the intended parties. So we need to make sure that your grant application is 100% correct, that there's no mistakes, and that all-important budget adds up as well. Being a chartered accountant, sometimes the grant budgets have to be signed off by an accountant, or you may have to provide other evidence such as a P&L or balance sheet, which needs to be signed off by a chartered accountant. So again, I can do that, saving you time and money, not having to engage your accountant to get that information for the grant application. Now, with grant applications, they are an investment in your business. So it allows you to reevaluate your business, reflect on what you've done, and also really work out what your future plans for your business are going to entail. Because remember, you may not be successful in this grant, and so we need to plan these projects for the grant, but then also it may give you the confidence to continue with that project, even if you're not successful, with your own funds or sourcing other funds. Now, this is really important, the supporting documents. Now, some grant programs clearly articulate what supporting documents they need and require, and some will say, oh, you can add it if you like. And if they mention it, I always encourage my clients to add it. The more information we can give to them, the better. Remember, they know nothing about us, they know nothing about our project, so we need to make sure that we share with them that really back to basics information and as much information as we can. So again, this is understanding what is required for that grant application, writing those letters of support, and being strategic about those letters of support. So who are we getting them from? What are those letters of support saying? And how are they going to really bump up our application to be better than everybody else's? Getting quotes. Now, this is an interesting one because everyone's really busy, and those suppliers that you want to get those quotes from are also small businesses that we know are always busy. And, we are going to them to say, hey, look, can we have a quote for this project that may or may not happen? We're not too sure, but we still need a quote. And this is where it becomes really important to have already established those relationships with those suppliers. And in my program for the Readiness for Grants, this is where we get those quotes before a grant application is even on the floor, because it does take time. And then building into your previous work plan, what deadline are you going to put on those quotes for those suppliers in terms of getting them back, and making sure that we're not waiting for them at the 11th hour. The financial reports, as I mentioned before, are instrumental and quite often for larger grants required to be submitted, and also more often than not need to be signed off by a chartered accountant as well. And this is the point of the grant application where we just need to get shit done. We just need to get it all sorted, all collated, confident that we're going to receive it all, so that we can really make sure that our application is as strong as possible, and that we're not going to miss any deadlines either. So this step is really important. When we've done all the planning, then it's about contacting, ringing people. If you need to get 2 quotes, you need to ring 2 or 3, 4 people even, because chances are they're not all going to send them back. And this is where, as I said before, the collaboration and partnerships that you've created within your business and your network are really important, because you want those other small businesses and suppliers to also understand the grants process so that they can help as well. Because, if you do get the grant and they've supplied a quote, the chances are they're in the running for this project to go ahead and get more work from you as well. So there is the incentive, but when they're busy, you need to work with them and help them out as well. So we need to be clear about what we need on that quote in terms of dates and amounts and all that sort of stuff. And that's where we work together to get that done. Now, this is the most important step, because we are bringing everything together. So I don't start writing an application until I have got all the quotes, all the information, we've gone through a draft of the application, we've outlined that work plan, we've got the project plan sorted, and then we can collate it all and really have one good go at writing your draft application. So that means we're not leaving anything out, we're not missing anything, and we are making sure that we are writing it in an efficient way. So when it comes to writing the draft application, looking at the key criteria to address, which are normally in the guidelines, checking the assessment weightings. So when they include the assessment weightings, a key component of that might be not necessarily relevant to you or important to you, but it might be worth 30% to the overall application. So you need to make sure that you're answering in line with that. And one thing that can trick people as well is the word or character limits. Now, grant applications are now using grant portals, whereby each box, it might say maximum 200 words, and it will automatically cut off your words if you've written more than 200 words. So at this point as well, I always encourage people to copy the questions into a Word document and just solely work in that Word document. And then at the very final step, when everyone's reviewed it and you're happy with it, then you just simply copy and paste. That also makes it very easy to check your word and character limits, because there's nothing worse than writing too little or too much, and then at the 11th hour again, having to delete words and getting all flustered. So it's all in the preparation, it's all in the readiness, and the word limits are there to be utilised. I quite often, if a question is there and it says a maximum of 200 words, I will write 199 words every single time. So absolutely maximising the words that they've given us. And it also might mean at this point that you do repeat yourself in some questions and some answers, because again, people that are assessing this do not know anything about your project. So you do really need to work out what your key messages are, what the key drivers are of your project, and weave that into your application as much as you can. But also making sure that you answer the question that they've asked as well. Don't answer a different question, just like at school. you're not going to get the marks and they're not going to get the tick if it's not answering the question. You can answer the question and add something else on, but make sure at the end of the day, you've also answered the question. Now, step 6, I quite enjoy this part of the process as well. We've done the majority of the work. You've written that draft application. You've got your letters of support. You've got all your quotes. You're sort of making sure you're ticking it all off. And then we're trying to then take the facts and the information and really do a once over with not necessarily changing the words, but making sure it's written in a persuasive way that gives the right information, and that when someone else is reading it who knows nothing about it can go, yeah, this project seems awesome and it fits all the criteria and I want to fund it. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want that approval. And this is also where you need to think about, why is your project the best with the most impact? So that, again, this comes back to the guidelines, the objectives of what this fund is trying to do, and making sure we include the benefits of the target audience, and also be very clear about who your targeted audience is for this project. And again, linking it back to the guidelines. So it all comes back to those all important guidelines, and adding your why and your story, and also how you're going to deliver this project. This might also be where you talk about other projects that you've done in your business, whether it be a grant or private funding, but that you've got evidence that you can deliver, because that's the other thing they want to know as well. So adding your why and adding your story to make your application yours, and to give it to the strongest possible opportunity to be approved. And this brings us to the final step. But again, I mean, they're all important steps, but this is the last hurdle, review, submit. So when it comes to review, I always make sure I have someone else review it. And also we're always, when I work with my clients, we're working together, we're doing this together. So I might write the draft application from all the information, send it back to them to make sure that it's all factually correct. And then again, get someone to check that it's grammatically correct, that there is nothing we've missed out, that we've answered the questions, and that it's good to go. I always plan to submit 1 or 2 days before the deadline. There's a couple of reasons for this, just so we can add in a little bit of a buffer if we don't get stuff back, such as the quotes, or we're waiting for another piece of information when we've factored that in. And also competitive grants, mainly, especially these days, will be oversubscribed. So some agencies will literally assess the grants as they come in the order that they come in. So you don't want to be the last one at 11:58 p.m. on the day that it can be submitted, and to be the last reviewed, because some of them don't speculate how they do their approval or assessment criteria, and so it might just be the first grants until the money's run out, or it might be on, or not. So you just don't want to be the last person to submit it. And also just to have that little bit of a buffer if something happens, someone gets sick or some information hasn't come through yet, that's really critical to our project and our grant, and we want to make sure that it's there. And the all-important step as well is to celebrate. Creating a grant application on a new project for your business is something to be celebrated, because it's actually all in the process. You've had to do a lot of thinking, a lot of work, a lot of evaluation and reflection. And sometimes that's something that hasn't been done for a lot of people. They just don't have time in their business, or they haven't had the purpose to go back and reflect. And it becomes a really enjoyable process, because you're forced to think about, well, what have we done? And actually we've done heaps once you think about it. So that's really important. And it's a bit like an exam or an assignment at uni. Once you've handed in and pressed submit, there's nothing you can do about it. You've done your best and you just have to wait, unfortunately. I do get really nervous pressing the submit button. And lately when I've been working with clients, when it comes to the submission time, I will do all the final draft. I'll do one check through in the portal, and then they'll log in, they'll double check it, and then they press submit. So I have outsourced that nerve-wracking pressing the submit button. And again, not submitting it with 20 minutes to go when your computer can crash or something like that. So that's why we ideally want to plan for an early submission of 1 or 2 days before the deadline. So thank you. Here is the 7 steps to writing successful grant applications. So we started off with the prepare, then we planned, then we created and designed what we were going to do. Then we've collated everything together. Then we've written the grant application. Then we've added our why. Why should we be approved for this project? And then we've reviewed and submitted. So if you can just take a moment now to think about what I've covered today. And I want you to just pop in the chat what your biggest takeaway is from the 7 steps that I have shared with you today. So if there's anything that you've learned that was a bit different, that you didn't know, if you just pop in the chat now and we can just see what people's biggest takeaways from my 7 steps to creating successful grant applications. Okay, cool. So somebody has said that they normally just start writing from the start without reading it through first. So that is a common one that comes up where people don't realize that they could or should be putting it into their own project plan and create a whole new process for writing the application in the first place. Somebody else said there's only 4 weeks to prepare. Yes, this is one thing that does stump a lot of people. The problem with grants is we don't know when they're going to be coming out. Just because a grant program came out last year from an agency or a funder doesn't necessarily mean they'll even do it this year, or that they'll do it at the same time, even with the same criteria. So 4 weeks is not long. Even it can be done, absolutely, but it means the more we can prepare and be ready before that grant comes out, we can have a stronger case to apply for. So if there's 4 weeks to go, there's one at the moment here in Australia called the Female Funders Grant, which is quite comprehensive, and that's a 4-week window. And I've got some clients that I'm working with that are basically spending 1 or 2 days a week collating everything for that grant application. So it's massive, but also that's a grant that could be up to 500,000. So there is the trade-off between, well, yes, I need to invest some time and money, and that's where they come and work with me as well to outsource some of it, because the trade-off is if they get the grant that they're looking for to fund that project, that's going to be game-changing for their business as well. So but it is something that surprises people, and also a lot of people might find a grant that's appropriate for their business and they can apply for and then forget about it. And then all of a sudden I've had people ring me the day before grants to close, and they've said, can we do an application? And unfortunately I've just said absolutely no way. It takes time, it takes effort. It would be different if a grant didn't require quotes or any external things that you could spend the 24 hours doing it, but quite often there's either got to be some external requirement, whether it be letters of support, some financial statements, quotes. We don't want people ringing me up the day before to submit their grant, but as I say, the 4 weeks can be done. The earlier the better, and the more ready you can be makes it much easier for everybody. So thank you for sharing those takeaways today. So if anyone's got any questions, pop them into the chat with a Q and we can see that. And I've also got some common questions that I get asked a lot, and that's got to be, where do I find grants for my business? So here in Australia, there are here are just a few of the grant directories that are quite useful. I was having a conversation with someone on a podcast the other day where they're like, oh, I start looking and then I get all confused, and then I think there's a grant for me, and then I realize it's in a different state and it's not for me, and then I just give up. So I do encourage people to subscribe to 1 or 2 different ones that may get notifications for grants that are coming up, and especially because of the short time frames. You don't want to miss out on them. So, you do want to be seeing them in your inbox and like, oh, it's open. Yeah, I'm going to make a start on that. But Grants Hub is a good one. Business Victoria and Business Australia, they've got a good grant finder. Grant Guru is another one, and Grants Ready. So some of these are paid platforms. Some of them are about $20 a month. Some of them are free, such as Business Victoria and Business Australia. But wherever you are in the world, there will be some portal, either a business or even your local council as well is another one, is to look as well. And also just business networks. There's a lot of Australian grants for small business at the moment for various things, and a couple of business Facebook groups that I'm in, they share them amongst them as well. So you normally find them through different means if you're looking for them. So again, if you're wanting to look for a grant, put it out there to the universe, and and ask people, share. And if you find one, share it with other people, because when they find one, they'll share it with you. Another question I get asked quite regularly is, are there grants to help me start a business? And the short answer is no. And the reason for this is because if we all wanted to start a business and there was money for starting a business, one, it's a risk factor for the government or the funders. And two, we want to know that we're going to invest in ourselves first. So that's why grants are normally for established businesses. There are startup programs that are at the ideation stage that you can be part of, but quite often they just might be a workshop style for a series of weeks rather than cash for your business. But at least you'll learn the expertise or learn from the experts, and learn and grow your knowledge to start your business if that's what you want to do. And how are grants assessed? So having worked in government agencies as responsible for a couple of grants teams, it really depends on the grant program. Some information will not be shared with anybody in terms of the assessment, but that's where they do talk about the weightings and the questions you need to answer. But also it comes back to the benefits and impacts from your project and how it fits into the eligibility criteria. So being able to understand the criteria and the who's most benefit is the key component to this grant application process as well. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. Otherwise, we will move on. So as I said, I've worked with a number of businesses to write their grant applications. And as I say, it's something I really enjoy. For me, it's a way to fully understand or better understand your business. And it really comes down to a mentoring role as well, because I'm going to be asking you questions that you may not have been asked before. And together we will work through those questions to get the best answers. So I say to people, you might give me a sentence of an answer and we're allowed 200 words, and I will work my magic into writing that grant application and get to the 200 words from your answer that you've given me initially. So yeah. And some of my clients, so Adam and Yulia, my approach to It's a Business Coach is amazing, personal and on point and practical. Liz guided us every step of the way, and we would never have been able to get the grant applications on time if it wasn't for Liz keeping us on track. So I absolutely love working with these guys. They are creatives. They've got some great ideas. They've got an amazing wedding venue at Newburn Park here in Gippsland, Victoria, Australia. And they were just all over the place. And so, I needed to make sure that we had a project plan, we had deadlines, kept in contact through the whole way, and we did get it submitted a couple of days before it was due, which was great. Chris, I've done a couple of grants for him, and he has said that his new cool room has made him more efficient and look more professional, which would not have been possible without the grant that he was successful for. And Ben and Jessie, clients of mine, this is a really cool story. They had a side hustle. They then wanted to pivot that side hustle into something slightly different. and they were able to get a grant that turned their business from a side hustle to a full-time business and go from there. And again, absolutely would not have been possible yet. They were probably 2 or 3 years away from it, and without this grant. So that's really cool. And that's what I love to see as well. It's allowing businesses to grow in a different way, and to give them that helping hand to get to the next stage of their business. So if you want to work with me, I've got a couple of programs running at the moment. I've got a grant readiness program where we basically prepare everything for the grant before a grant comes along, and also available to work with you to write your grant application for a grant that may be coming out. So the best way to do that is to book a 15-minute call with me to discuss your business and your readiness for grants. And Deb has just put the link into the chat there to book a 15-minute call as well. And if you do miss the link here, an email will be sent out after this with all the links as well. So I've got a bit of time available. And if there are no times available, please feel free to send me an email as well, because I'd love to have a chat with you, learn more about your business, learn more about what you want to achieve in your business and how you want to grow and how grants might help you do that. And we can look at working together. So super exciting. And also, because one of the things that comes up quite frequently is where do I find grants and things like that, I've actually also created my own exclusive Facebook group that's attached to my business Facebook page. And so I would love for you to join me in that group, where I will be sharing my efficiency tips. You'll get priority access to any webinars or events that I hold, and really just a space to be around like-minded business people. And, I do want people to share other information in there as well. So if any grants come up that I think are applicable, I will be sharing in there. At the moment, there's not that many grants around. I think especially here in Australia with the election happening, and things are a little bit quiet, but jump into that group, and then when we do find some grants, you'll be the first to learn about them. I do love this quote, and this is really relevant when it does come to grants. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So the more ready you are, the easier it will be to write that grant for you and your business. So that's it from me today. If you do have any questions, feel free to send me an email, or if you're in Australia, give me a call, or check out my website as well. And also I'm on socials, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And again, I just want to say thank you for joining me. I do run these every month, so check out my diary and my events page. And if you've got anybody who you think may benefit from this webinar, please share it with them. They do get posted on YouTube as well. And look forward to hearing from you soon. And have a great day, and we will see you later. Thank you.